The phantom ache. Have you ever listened to a specific synthwave track or watched a grainy VHS filter over a sunset and felt a sudden crushing weight in your chest? It is a deep, profound yearning for a 1980s summer you never actually lived through or a neon-lit city you have never visited. This haunting psychological phenomenon is called anemoia. It is the eerie, beautiful experience of feeling homesick for a place or a time that mathematically does not exist in your own timeline. You are grieving the loss of memories you never actually possessed. In our highly connected, hyper-stimulating modern era, this feeling is becoming an absolute epidemic. We are constantly surrounded by curated aesthetics, retro filters, and romanticized media that perfectly simulate the warmth of a bygone era. Your brain, exhausted by the relentless demands of the present day, latches onto these artificial signals like a life raft. It begins to construct a stunning, flawless mental architecture of a past that is entirely fictional. You feel a genuine physical ache for a simpler time, completely forgetting that the era you were mourning had its own massive, suffocating complexities. This is not just a quirky glitch in your memory processor, it is a desperate survival mechanism. When the reality of your current existence feels too heavy, too fast, or too isolated, your subconscious mind automatically builds a digital time machine. It safely transports your emotional core into a carefully sanitized, perfect version of history, where everything feels warm, predictable, and incredibly safe. But the tragic reality is that you are chasing a ghost, desperately trying to unlock a door to a house that was never actually built. The sanitation of history. The reason this fake nostalgia feels so incredibly intoxicating is because your brain is only consuming the absolute highlights of history. When we look back at the 1990s, the 80s, or even the 2000s through the lens of modern media, we are not looking at reality. We are looking at a highly curated, perfectly color-graded highlight reel. The true, gritty, uncomfortable friction of daily life has been entirely edited out of the footage. We see the neon lights, the arcade cabinets, the carefree summer nights, and the incredible music. We do not see the crushing boredom, the lack of medical advancements, the social anxieties, or the terrifying global uncertainties that plague the people actually living in those moments. Your brain is essentially comparing your raw, unedited, exhausting present reality against a perfectly photoshopped cinematic movie trailer of the past. It is an entirely rigged mathematical equation, and your present life will lose every single time. This creates a deep psychological trap. By romanticizing a sanitized version of history, you begin to deeply resent the era you actually live in. You start to feel as though you were born in the wrong generation, cursed to navigate a cold, disconnected digital world while the golden age of human existence slipped perfectly through your fingers. But this golden age never existed. It is a beautiful, comforting lie manufactured by pop culture and perfectly amplified by your own exhausted mind. You are mourning the loss of a utopia that was constructed entirely in the editing room, totally, completely devoid of the actual human struggle. The avoidance of the present. Fake nostalgia is rarely about a genuine desire to travel back in time. It is almost entirely about a desperate need to escape the crushing weight of right now. When you feel that heavy, melancholic yearning for a fake past, it is a massive biological indicator that you are deeply unsatisfied with your current environment. The modern world is overwhelmingly complex. You are constantly bombarded by an endless stream of digital information, economic pressure, and the terrifying expectation to constantly perform. Faced with this unbearable psychological noise, your mind violently pulls the emergency brake. It retreats into the ultimate safe room, a fabricated memory where the rules are simple and the outcomes are already known. Anemia is the ultimate form of modern escapism. Instead of dealing with the messy, unpredictable anxiety of building your own future, your brain prefers to wrap itself in the warm, predictable blanket of a history that cannot hurt you. Because this past is entirely fake, it is also completely safe. There is absolutely zero risk of failure, heartbreak, or rejection in a memory that you simply constructed from a mood board. But this safety comes at a devastating cost. By constantly retreating into the warm glow of a fictional yesterday, you are mathematically robbing yourself of the energy required to fix your actual today. The commodification of memory. One of the most terrifying aspects of this phenomenon is that your fake nostalgia is not entirely an accident. It is being aggressively manufactured and weaponized against you. We live in an era where massive algorithms and corporate marketing completely understand the psychological power of Anemoia. They know that if they can successfully trigger that deep melancholic ache in your chest, you will instantly buy whatever product, aesthetic, or media is attached to it. Your profound human yearning has been perfectly commodified. You are being sold your own fake childhood. From the resurgence of retro gaming consoles to vintage clothing brands and synth-heavy pop music, entire industries are mathematically designed to harvest your exhaustion. They create a beautifully curated aesthetic that mimics the warmth of a bygone era, effectively trapping you in a highly profitable loop of longing. This constant exposure to manufactured nostalgia violently distorts your own internal memory architecture. You begin to confuse the corporate aesthetic of a decade with the actual lived human experience. Your brain starts to genuinely believe that life used to look like a perfectly graded film photograph. And because your current reality looks sharp, chaotic, and aggressively high definition, you feel an immense sense of loss. You are grieving for a beautifully packaged product, mistaking it for a profound psychological truth. This engineered longing keeps you constantly searching for a sense of home and comfort that you can perfectly purchase, but that you can never actually truly inhabit. The robbery of authentic experience. When you are constantly looking backward with a heavy, romanticized gaze, you are actively destroying your ability to form authentic, meaningful memories in the present. This is the profound tragedy of Anemoia. Your brain's central processor only has a finite amount of focus and emotional bandwidth. If you dedicate a massive portion of that energy to mourning a time period you never actually experienced, there is absolutely zero bandwidth left to process the beauty of right now. You are essentially walking through your own life with a heavy, dark gray blindfold on, completely ignoring the beautiful, unique architecture of the exact era you belong to. The present moment, with all of its flaws, chaos, and overwhelming complexity, is the only place where true human connection can actually occur. 50 years from now, the era you are currently living in will be heavily romanticized by the next generation. They will look back at this exact moment in time with the same crushing, melancholic yearning that you feel for the past. But you will have entirely missed it, because you spent the entire decade staring at a screen, wishing you were somewhere else. By refusing to engage with the raw, uncomfortable friction of your own timeline, you are mathematically guaranteeing that you will reach the end of your life without ever having truly lived it. You trade the incredibly rich, vibrant reality of the present for the cheap, highly predictable comfort of a beautiful lie, effectively erasing your own authentic existence from the timeline. The weight of unlived potential. Deep beneath the surface of this manufactured nostalgia is a much heavier, more terrifying psychological truth. When you ache for a fake past, you are not just missing an aesthetic. You are deeply grieving the heavy weight of your own unlived potential. The fictional past represents a timeline where you imagine yourself as someone completely different, someone bolder, happier, more creative, or more deeply connected. When you romanticize an era you never knew, you are actually projecting your deepest unmet desires onto a blank historical canvas. You are mourning the version of yourself that you have mathematically failed to become in the present day. If you feel a crushing nostalgia for the vibrant, rebellious energy of the 1990s, it is likely because your current daily routine feels utterly suffocating and devoid of freedom. If you yearn for the tight-knit, slow-paced communities of a vintage countryside, the paralysis of comparison. The human brain is a relentless comparison engine, mathematically designed to evaluate your current status against your environment to ensure survival. But when you introduce the concept of anemia, this beautiful biological mechanism violently short-circuits. You are no longer comparing yourself to your peers or your own past achievements. You are comparing your fragile, messy human existence to an entirely flawless, mathematically perfect fiction. This creates a deeply toxic psychological paralysis. No real-world relationship, no modern career achievement, and no present-day joy can ever possibly compete with the beautifully sanitized, perfectly scored highlight reel of a fake past. When your baseline for happiness is rooted in an era that literally never existed, you guarantee a state of permanent, crushing disappointment. You begin to entirely dismiss the genuine, beautiful moments of your actual life because they do not carry that specific, artificial vintage glow. A perfectly wonderful evening with friends feels inadequate because it doesn't look like a scene from a nostalgic movie. You become a harsh, unforgiving critic of your own reality, constantly measuring the raw, beautiful chaos of the present against an impossible, sterile standard. This relentless comparison slowly drains the color and vibrancy from your daily routine, trapping you in a dark, heavy purgatory where the past is eternally perfect, the future is incredibly terrifying, and the present is simply an exhausting, deeply unfulfilling waiting room. Forging the present aesthetic. The only way to break free from this beautiful, suffocating illusion is to aggressively sever your emotional tether to the fake past and forcefully drag your consciousness back into the raw reality of right now. You must mathematically realize that the intense warmth, the deep connection, and the profound beauty you are searching for do not belong to a specific decade. They belong entirely to the human experience. Those feelings are not trapped in a VHS tape or a vintage photograph. They are dormant inside your own chest, waiting for you to actively forge them in the present day. You have to stop treating your life like a waiting room and start treating it like the main event. This requires the terrifying courage to drop the heavy, comfortable blanket of nostalgia and step completely into the cold, sharp friction of the modern world. Start romantically obsessing over the exact moment you are in. Find the deep, profound, cinematic beauty in your current chaotic reality. When you finally stop mourning a history that mathematically never existed, you suddenly free up a massive, overwhelming amount of cognitive energy. You can finally use that beautiful, violent energy to construct a present day that is so incredibly rich, so deeply connected, and so authentically yours that you will never need to escape it again. You are not a ghost haunting a fake past. You are the sole architect of the exact era you are standing in. It is time to pick up your tools, embrace the beautiful noise, and finally start building.